Cool. I'm just waiting for this one here. Hey everybody, how's everybody doing tonight? Hopefully you guys are enjoying your Thursday. Everybody's enjoying it. And then I always want to start off these videos by saying I want to thank the essential workers out there right now, the ones that are working on the front lines right now, the doctors, nurses, just everybody that's essential right now, and just trying to make this place a little better and hopefully get back to some normal life again. That'd be good. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, some states are starting to reopen little by little. And, as always, stay safe out there for everybody out there. Hopefully, everybody's being safe about it. Just following the guidelines. That's what it's all about. The quicker we become safe about this, the quicker we get to go back to normal life. So, as always, wash your hands before and after every meal. And if you're going to cough, sneeze, do it on your elbow, then wash your hands, do all that stuff, and just try to take better care of yourself. And as far as the people that are quarantined right now, I know it's probably a little crazy, but hopefully you guys are keeping your body's good. You're taking care of your bodies. You're keeping your mind fresh, and you're trying to distract yourselves in any way you can. And hopefully, everything just goes to normal here pretty soon. I'm sure that's what we all want. Little by little, things are starting to look okay. I mean, other than some other stuff that's really happening out there. And, it's just, you just have to learn how to respect each other, learn how to respect one another, and everything will be good. So, let's get this show on the road today. Yes, my name is Juan Rodriguez. You can watch this here on YouTube and on the Facebook sports app that we have. So that's always fun. So either way, one or the other will always help. Today, we are going to talk about the 1998 Major League Baseball season. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Why 1998? What was so special about that? Well, a lot of things was special about that. Obviously, the headliner at that point was the home chase, Mark McGwire versus Sammy Sosa. And, that was sort of the funnest summer I remember as a kid being a baseball fan. That was a lot of fun to watch every single night, the highlights and just everything. That was a great time to be a fan of baseball. But there was a lot of stuff that was building up to that before we even got to 1998. And, in that season as well, there was a lot of great players during that year, and there was a lot of names that down the road would become some of the greatest who ever played. But more as that as we go on to this video. So in order to understand 1998, we really have to go back to 1994. Now, I was only 3, so I actually had to look this up and read about it a little bit. But 1994 was kind of a weird year for baseball. They canceled the season on a strike. The World Series was canceled. Everything was canceled, and it was sort of weird because the fans wanted the game to come back. The players and the owners just couldn't see eye to eye, whatever the case may be, whether it was money, revenue, all that stuff. And so 1994, season's over, nothing happened. And fans were they were kind of hurt. Fans just wanted their game back. And then 1995 came along, and it was pretty hard because some fans just left baseball in general. They just lost respect for the game. And the thing about baseball, it is considered America's national pastime, but it does have its dark moments, in the sport, from just terrible, teams just quitting to strikes and to steroid scandals and growth hormone scandals. Is just bad. It's just been a bad blemish on the sport that's really loved, but kind of has a bad rep time to time. You have to go back to the early 1900s. The White Sox actually threw away the World Series because the mob kind of paid them off to kind of throw the World Series away, because they were going to pay them I think 3 times what their salary was going to be. And that's a blemish. Then you have the steroid scandals, of what became, a great time. And then it turns out to be that, hey, these guys who were hitting home runs and doing all this, they were just taking some stuff they weren't supposed to. And then, of course, the bats were always a thing. And then Pete Rose gambling. So baseball's always had its controversial thing up until now, where sign stealing, the Astros are one of the first teams to really get hit by this. And I say the first team because um, it's really no secret that teams try to take advantage or try to get an advantage any way they can. The Astros did it by sign stealing and the whole, banging trash cans, and it just turns out to be that it was signals. Those bangs on the trash cans, were signals of what, pitch was coming for the batters to be prepared for what pitch was coming. So, um, it's just, baseball's always had its bad blemish. And so we're going to get through this. 1994, the strike's over. Then 1995, they come back. And it was really kind of a 3-year kind of a buildup because, 1998, Mark McGwire leaves the Oakland Athletics to come play for the St. Louis Cardinals. Sammy Sosa is the, kind of the cool kid coming to Chicago, and, Ken Griffey Jr., who a lot of people were kind of, saying at that time, if anybody was going to break this home run record, well, it was going to be Ken Griffey, because Ken Griffey was the all around perfect player. And he was well respected with everybody. I mean, there was not one guy who didn't like Ken Griffey Jr. He was everything you wanted a baseball player. Nice swing, great outfielding, just an all around good, great baseball player. And everybody just kind of had that feeling like, oh, he's going to break it. He's going to break it. And, it was kind of cool, but unfortunately it didn't turn out that way. It turned out to be a race between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. So it's the beginning of the 1998 season. A lot of people were kind of excited to see how Mark's going to do in St. Louis. Sammy Sosa kind of caught a little bit of a, buzz during the spring training, and then off to the races we went. So in the beginning, Mark was hitting good. Sammy was hitting good. And they were just, kind of tallying. They were just kind of, putting up home runs after home runs after home runs. And, it was looking good, and to the point where it was a 3-man race at one point. Like I mentioned, Ken Griffey was in the middle of it in the very beginning. A lot of people don't remember that, but he was like in the middle. He was really there, for a lot of these games. So they were just going, hitting, doing their thing, and everybody's just doing, their thing. And then it's the halfway point, all-star game's over. The reality kind of set in that Ken Griffey was going to get left behind in the dust. Sammy and Mark were kind of the two guys that were like, hey, if anybody's going to break Roger Maris's record of 61 home runs, one of these two guys is going to do it. And here we go. It was as they said on the 30 for 30, the long gone summer, because that's what it seemed every night. One of these two guys were just hitting baseballs, just gone. It became to the point where batting practices for Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were kind of like part of the ticket. Everybody wanted to get inside the park early. Everybody had their gloves ready to catch, some, batting practice home runs. And that was kind of the show at that time. So here we go. We're going, Sammy passes Mark, Mark passes Sammy. It was just back and forth. And that's what made it so much fun for me as a kid, because everybody in where I was staying at the time, it was either you were team Mark McGwire or you were team Sammy Sosa. Now, for me personally, I was a Sammy Sosa fan. I just loved the way he played the game. It just looks like he was having fun, that he looked like a big kid just having fun and trying to do his thing. Mark was really kind of the, hey, the Gladiator, the American Gladiator. Yeah, Frank Thomas was there, and a lot of other great hitters were there too. It's just Mark at that time was kind of like, I'm kind of like the man right now. So, they're going back and forth. There was a time where, right before the season almost ends, Mark and Sammy, they're going for it. They're going back and forth. And Mark at one point gets ejected in the first inning. And it's like, oh man, like that actually might hurt him. That might actually hinder his chances to catch Roger Maris. And then, here's Sammy Sosa. Now he's going. And there was at one point where, Sammy was going to take it first. That's what it looked like in the beginning. Then Mark comes back with, his fury. Sammy kind of hit a rut. And then lo and behold, that day comes, he's sitting at 61. Mark is sitting at 61. Sammy, I think, was at 58, something like that. He was at 58, 59. And sure enough, what better way to break it than to play the Cubs at that time? And, it's Mark's second at bat. Here we go. And he hits a home run, number 62. And that kind of broke everything, like, hey, this is the one. And Mark broke it, and everybody was just kind of like in shock that for a record that stood as long as it did, it finally got broken because, it was just a long time until somebody really challenged Roger Maris for that title. Now, I mentioned earlier about the downfalls of baseball. Well, this is kind of in the middle of Mark's controversy that, somebody saw something in his locker and it turned out to be down the road, it turned out to be steroids. And, at that time, testing wasn't really a big thing. Nobody really knew they knew what steroids were. It just, the testing back then wasn't as strict as it is now. And sure enough, down the road, it turned out to be steroids. And, it just kind of, I wouldn't say it hurt because at that time it was just kind of a great accomplishment, but it did make people start to wonder, hey, he's taking it. How many others are kind of taking it too? And it sucked that they got caught in it. But like, as I mentioned, baseball's always had its dark moments, and this was just kind of the opening of another dark moment for baseball. But Mark breaks the record at 62. Then season keeps going, and season's over, and Mark McGwire ends up with 70 home runs, and Sammy ends up with 66 home runs. But somehow he won the MVP that year. I don't know. Maybe it was that he led the National League in RBIs too. I don't know. He just, I don't know how that happened. The guy who break Roger Maris's record, he doesn't get MVP, but like Sammy said, I got 66 home runs and I won MVP. I'm pretty happy. Well, I'd be pretty happy too. And so, sure enough, that year was just kind of incredible. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of other stuff was still happening during that time in 1998. As I mentioned, Ken Griffey was in the middle. Well, he ended up with 56 home runs, and he led the American League in home runs. So this was the first time in Major League Baseball history that three guys hit over 50 plus home runs. The game was changing. Everybody was getting bigger, everybody was getting faster, and everybody was getting stronger. And, Rookie of the Year that year was Kerry Wood, who ended up to be a great pitcher for the Cubs all those years. Manager of the Year was Joe Torre for the New York Yankees, who eventually would end up winning the World Series, beating the San Diego Padres. And that's what it was. It was just normal Joe Torre, who was a great manager for the Yankees all those years. And, there was a pitcher who was starting to become a name. And at that time, nobody really knew who he was. And now we all do. It was Roger Clemens. He was a Cy Young winner that year. He won the triple pitching crown for Toronto that year. 20 wins, 2.65 ERA, 271 strikeouts. And he, as I mentioned, he did win the Cy Young. And it was just, it was cool. It was just a lot of people just were starting to come into their own. Everybody knew Ken Griffey, but nobody knew about Kerry Wood. But now people do because of the great career. But at that point, nobody knew who he was. He was just a rookie. He won Rookie of the Year. Roger Clemens was coming into his own. He was starting to become a dominant pitcher in Major League Baseball. Joe Torre was still being Joe Torre. And Ricky Henderson, for the third year in a row, got stolen bases. He was the leader of stolen bases for Major League Baseball with 66 in Oakland. I mean, that was the trademark. It was just Ricky Henderson being Ricky Henderson again. And all that was kind of left in the dark because it was Mark McGwire versus Sammy Sosa. And it was just kind of one of those things where, if people don't, people will remember that more than these other ones. Juan Gonzalez was the MVP for the Texas Rangers, and it was great. It was a great year for baseball. 1998 was really going to be the year where fans were going to start to come back. Like they were starting to see, like, hey, maybe we should give the sport a chance. But then the steroid scandal hit for Mark and Sammy and a bunch of other guys that it's like, oh, once you think baseball's looking good, here we go again. And then, that was kind of the end of the 1998 season. The Yankees won another World Series. They beat the Padres, and it was just 1998 was one of those years where a lot of things were starting to get better for baseball, but then this got hit. Remember, it was just 4 years ago the strike ended. Now they got this issue of steroids coming out. That why isn't MLB really taking this seriously? Why is it that they're getting away with this? And now the commissioner's kind of a limbo, like, hey, I have to kind of put my foot down because we're just starting to get these people back, but now they're kind of going back away because of this whole steroid scandal. So that happened. And then you would think that the mindset of the people was, man, I wonder how long it's going to be before someone else beats Mark McGwire's record. Well, it didn't take 50 years, like the other time when Roger Maris held it. It only took 3 years because just 3 years later, a guy by the name of Barry Bonds breaks it with 73 in a single season. 73. And to put that in perspective, there's 162 games regular. So in about half of them, he hit a home run, at least one home run a game in 80, like in that time span. So it's pretty cool. And they still walked him. They walked him, and he still, got the home run record. But then again, it came up again. Barry Bonds taking steroids, and this was kind of oh man, what's going on? MLB had to step in again, and then just a few years later after that, Sammy Sosa gets caught with the cork bat, and then a few years after that, there was the whole, some officials, kind of gambling games away. Then it's just one thing after another. The thing with baseball is it's a great sport. It really is. It's a great sport with, high concentration and, just really great athletes. The problem is, it's not when is the next scandal going to be. It's, or not what is the next scandal going to be. It's when is the next scandal going to be. And it was doing good for a little bit, but then, the Astros came in, sign stealing. They kind of got caught. I'm not saying that they're the only team that did it, but they're the kind of the first ones to kind of make it obvious in a sense, banging trash cans, or really, like, come on, just you can't get any more obvious than that. So, baseball, it really is a great, great time. It's great for the family, but I think why, the major factor of why people are starting to lose interest in this game, number one, it's the scandals, from throwing games away to umpires, calling games a certain way, to the steroids, the sign stealings, just the phony bats. It's just getting to the point where, you know, the integrity of the game is kind of not there anymore. Secondly, you know, it's a very nobody wants to watch on TV anymore. That was all it's on. During the summertime was baseball. Because back then we didn't have like 1,000 channels. We only had, if you were lucky, 30. If you were lucky, and sure enough, you had your basic, KCAL 9, Fox 11. Just those were kind of the two major at that time. And then baseball would show up on ESPN if you were lucky to have it. Then now we have so many channels where it's like, oh, do I want to watch a baseball game from home, or do I want to live stream a movie, something. So that's also going down. And what's also kind of going down too is the patience. The game, from what I keep hearing from everybody, like the one major complaint is it's too long. And I don't think it's too long. It's just us as a society, we've gotten used to, we want it now. That's sort of the society we kind of live in. It's not that the game takes forever. It's we want it now. And I get it, there's fans out there that don't understand why are you going to throw it to first if he's already safe? Why are you trying to get the out? Well, that's the reason. He's trying to get an out, trying to catch the runner off guard. Why does another complaint I hear is, why after hitting a home run, why do you got to run the bases? And I'm in favor of that one, like, hey, you hit a home run. Just stay there, or at least run to first. And if you see that it's a home run, come back. Like, come back. Like, you don't have to do the whole. I know it's tradition, running around the bases. I get all that, but I think in today's society, we got to make this quicker. There was talks about pitchers only having 25 seconds to throw the pitch, and to some people that was still too long. So I think that's the problem, that we live in a society now that we kind of want it now. We're not as patient as we used to be. We're not as focused on the game as we used to be. Now we'll go to games, and it's kind of like a sad situation now where no people are buying seats right behind the dugout, and they're on their phone or whatever, and a foul ball hits them in the face, and then they kind of want to sue the team. And it's like, well, dude, you bought the seats there. Like, what was going to happen. But it's a crappy way to go out. But I mean, now there are some instances though where, hey, some people have recently passed away from this, and that's a very unfortunate thing. So now it's netting, with everybody, with all these batters and players just getting bigger, stronger, and faster. Yeah, I agree. Netting should be, all around now. It's just there's no control in people's swing anymore. They just swing for the fences and hope it lands. And I think, netting around the whole, field is a good idea. Now, if you're in the home run section, there is no netting, so you just got to be careful. So, but overall, 1998 was a great year for baseball. It was going to be the year, or it felt like the year that people were going to welcome baseball back into their arms, and then it just didn't happen. And then, 1998 was also the 10-year anniversary, and my brother's watching this right now, and I have to let him know that it was a 10-year anniversary of, the Dodgers are going to win the World Series again. Every year I hear that, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. I'm about to be 30 next year. I have seen other teams. I have seen the Cubs and Red Sox win World Series, and these guys still think it's their year. Every year it's their year, and I always give my brother crap for that, because he truly believes it. And no, it's not your year. Before this whole coronavirus was happening, the first day First day they got Mookie Betts. Oh, the Dodgers are gonna win the World Series again. It's the same thing every year. You guys are gonna do good and blow it up at the end. It's gonna blow up in their faces in the end. It's like, I don't know if you guys ever watched that Stephen A. On First Take. It's just the Cowboys are kind of like a accident waiting to happen. Well, that's kind of what the Dodgers are, because the fan, like, I don't have a problem with the organization. It's just there's some fans out there that just like they just no, like it's sort of like embarrassing to like true Dodger fans out there that there are Dodger fans out there that are just killing it, like ruining their name for it. It's just but that's kind of what the Dodgers are. They're just an accident waiting to happen, and I am always here to watch in their misery. Because like I go for the little brother of California. I go for the Angels, so I really never have anything to look forward to. So it's always funny how they kind of like make fun of us because we don't do anything. But last time I checked, we actually have won a World Series in this century. So I mean, I wasn't even a thought of yet the last time the Dodgers won. I think my brother was 5 when the Dodgers won, and that was kind of like, I always give him the old joke about, everybody talks about that Kirk Gibson home run, the one where he hits the home run and he's going like this, like, like that happened yesterday. I think I took a crap about 30 minutes ago that was newer than that. I mean, and that's kind of like how it is, really. Like, you're talking about that crap. Well, it's sort of like if I was to talk about the crap I laid, just 30 minutes ago. It's kind of old, dude. It's kind of disgusting and kind of pathetic, to be honest. But Dodger fans, you do you, man. You guys do you. It's just know, when you guys get blown up, and you know and the reason I say it is because it's true, man. My brother's one of those people. It's like they can lose every single game. They can go 0 for 100, 0 wins and 162 losses. And the second Dodger season's over, I get a text message like 20 seconds later. The Dodgers are going to win the World Series next year. I think there's just sometimes some franchises fans just have to just, hey, like if you're a team that won in this century, hey, have fun, good for you. If people have to think about the last time you guys won a World Series, just kind of go back to hiding, please. You'll be doing California a huge favor. But overall, for Throwback Thursday, this is kind of a special one because, as I mentioned, this was, a very important summer to me because this was the last summer I was gonna, be with my grandparents all year because personal note, my mom and dad divorced and I had to live with my grandparents for a little bit. And, I was living with them. And this was the last summer me and my grandpa would watch baseball together, every single night. This was a great year. We loved every minute of it. And, I actually texted him today and, I told him because he actually does watch the show time to time. And I did tell him about doing the show and he, did want me for people, to remind you people that, no matter what you hear about this sport, it's still a great sport. He loves this sport just like how I love, football. If I wish people really knew him, that when you go to a game with him, it's kind of a trip because he'll tell you about formations, he'll tell you what the players are thinking, and he'll tell you like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And it's crazy because there was at one point where my grandpa, for about as long as I can remember, he always called the World Series right. He always called it. And I don't know how he did it. He was just that good. He loved it. He studied it, and he loves his game. He does get hurt that sometimes, things happen. He wasn't too fond of the Astros, but he knew, even he was one of the first ones to tell me that it's a shame that they're getting punished the way they are for something that majority of every team does. And this is a man who's about to push 80, still understands that it's just part of the game. It's a crappy way for it to be part of the game, but it is what it is. And I think, one of my greatest, blessings in life was every time I go to a baseball game with him, it's always fun to sit next to him, talk to him about the players of today versus the players of the past. And, what changed from his time to now? What's different about these players compared to players of yesterday? How come there's not many players like Cal Ripken? And how come there's not many players like, Luis Valenzuela, just dominant pitchers? There's one or, he tells me like, yeah, there's a couple good pitchers out there and there's, great pitchers. But it wasn't like, back then where he can name you, 10 right off the top of his head that it's like, yeah, they would dominate these guys today. It's just from the way he sees it, the pitchers aren't kind of like intimidating anymore. He remembers pitchers when they were really intimidating, and that was kind of the job. But now it's all about flash, and he understands, times change, and he's one of those guys that'll tell you times change, players change, everything changes, schemes changes. But he always told me something that no matter if scheme changes, no matter if, the players change, the one thing is he always told me it's not about the money. It's not about, the team that they put together. It's about the players out there that who really want it. And, the perfect example was, I remember one year, I forget the World Series, and I told him, I think it was the Yankees Florida one, the 2003 or 4 World Series. And I told them, I think the Yankees got this, because at that time the Yankees were stacked and, they were looking on to, get back from their 2001, defeat of the Diamondbacks. And it was like, I think the Yankees got the Marlins. And my grandpa was like one of the very few at that time was like, nah, the Marlins got it. And they're going to take it in 6 or something like that. I think he called the game too. Sure enough, the Marlins win. And he's just like, yeah, you look at the Yankees, they have all these great players, they're making great money, they got a great coach, but they didn't want it. And that's the one thing he always told me is I like the teams that do want it, the underdogs, He always goes for the underdogs, and somehow they always pull through for him. I never understood how that worked, but that's just how good he is, and he just sees things a little better than we can. So I mean, so it's pretty cool. But hopefully when baseball comes back, I want to take him to a game like I always do every year, and hopefully, I want to cherish those moments for like the rest of my life. So I'm rooting for baseball to come back. So hopefully everything goes well. And that was it. That was Throwback Thursday, the 1998 MLB season. Now, next week, I'm going to do another one, and I'm still debating on which topics I'm going to do. I'll probably make that decision by Monday, and then I'll let you guys know. And then, tomorrow, no video because we got to get ready for Father's Day weekend, so to all you dads out there, hopefully you guys have a great Father's Day, and hopefully you guys get good gifts because it's kind of no contest when it's Mother's Day and these moms get these awesome gifts and these dads kind of get a pen and tie. It's kind of a bad deal. I think they wasted all their money on mom's gift, but it happens. So that's it for today. We will do a new one tomorrow or next week, a new Throwback Thursday. And then if anything breaking news happens, I'll make sure to get on it. ASAP, and then we'll just go from there. And then other than that, do we have any questions from the thing today? No? All right. Sounds good. You all have a beautiful weekend, and we will talk to you guys later. Go Angels!